Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we have a montage in the streets of London.
Happily frolicking.
Which you wouldn't be able to see because this is an audio podcast. We didn't think that through, did we? Well, you'll just have to trust us that there was a montage. It was great. It was video.
No, it was actually just still pictures.
Of course, if you haven't caught on yet, that this was in the episodes we were watching this week.
Which was The Chase.
The Chase.
The Chase through space and time.
So,
Written by Terry Nation.
Terry Nation, I think he's written every Dalek serial so far, so... No,
or at least partially.
Maybe not. He did write Keys of Marinus, so that was that.
We can check. We
Terry
have
Nation
technology.
wrote Keys of Marinus. It's right there.
Oh, where?
Right there.
Where?
It's the same
Oh.
story style as Nation's The Keys of Marinus.
Oh,
With the TARDIS crew in a different location nearly every episode.
yes.
Yes.
Which wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. The end. It was better near the end. It got better near the end.
So it starts where we left off in... What was
Space Museum.
Space Museum. That.
Yeah, starts right where we left off with the Daleks being like, we have located, the Doctor is on the move again. Exterminate.
And so the Doctor and co.
They're having fun with the...
Time space visualizer?
The Doctor's like, go ahead, think of any scene in history because you can't view the future, but you can view the past. So...
But you could go to the future and view the past, which would be the future of where you were because they're in a TARDIS.
That's true. So the time-space visualizer coupled with a time machine gets really OP.
Not really. You can just see things.
Yeah, that's true.
And you could also just see them by going there.
Yeah, it's true. But what do they watch? They watch the Gettysburg Address, and...
They watch Shakespeare get the idea for Hamlet. Wow, thanks, Barbara. And that's all they watched.
Yeah.
And they landed on this planet called Iridius. I originally thought Iridius was spelled with an I. I-R-I-D-I-U-S, but it's not. It's an A.
Yeah, because
Iridius.
it's supposed to be like a desert. Arid. I guess it's...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So original.
And then later, Mechanus.
That one I
covered
understood.
with plants, except for that one city. Anyway, that's later.
So they're on Iridius.
And surprise, surprise, they run into another resistance movement.
Less
yet,
of a
but...
resistance movement and more of a, damn, our city's been taken over by these... Well, less of a resistance movement and more of, our city has been covered in sand because the lake or the ocean dried up and now... Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically Tatooine. There's two suns. And, there's a cameo from Luke and Uncle Owen and Emperor. No.
What?
No, that's not in
Whoa.
It's not in the episode. You're like, whoa, did I miss something? No.
So Ian and Vicky decide to go off wandering. Well, Vicky decides she sees like a person or something on the hill, so she wants to go investigate. And Ian's going to go with her. Because, Ian's the guy.
Yeah.
And the Doctor and Barbara stay behind, but the Doctor gives Ian the TARDIS magnet, which becomes important later.
And Ian and
The
Vicky...
TARDIS magnet helps him find the TARDIS, I should clarify that.
Ian and Vicky find this ring, like, buried in the sand, and Vicky makes a big deal about it with this weird story about how back on Earth, in the future, I guess, when she was on Earth, there was like a ring in a field, and they thought if they picked it up, bad things would happen.
That's because she said that every time they pulled the ring, the drawbridge of the castle came down. And she thought something bad was going to happen if they pulled this ring. And then they pulled it and nothing happened. And then they were walking away and then something happened.
What, the sandstorm? Was that what?
No, the thing that happened was the floor opened up.
Oh yeah, they fall underground. And then there's also a sandstorm.
Oh, then there's the sandstorm because Barbara goes into the TARDIS to get something. I don't remember what it was now. But she sees on the she goes in to turn off the time-space visualizer because it makes this really annoying high-pitched squeal. And on it, she sees the Daleks talking about exterminating the Doctor and co.
Mm-hmm.
So the Doctor decides they should go warn Ian and Vicky. And they go out, and then there's a sandstorm. And that was all in episode 1.
Yeah. And when the sandstorm subsides, the Doctor and Barbara, wake up or get up or whatever, and the landscape is completely changed, and they have no idea where they are.
The TARDIS has been buried in sand, I guess. And then the Doctor tries to find it with the TARDIS magnet, and then he remembers he gave it to Ian. But Ian and Vicky are underground.
Good luck with that. Then back with Ian and Vicky, they meet some Meridians.
No, they meet the other ones, the monsters that have taken over the city.
Oh. Do they? I don't remember these.
Yeah, they do, because they run away, and then the Doctor and Barbara meet the Iridians, because they're the ones that tell the Doctor and Barbara that they're going to blow the tunnel.
Oh, okay.
And that's how Ian injures his leg. They weren't able to stop it in time. And Ian injures his leg, and Vicky goes for help. And the Daleks have landed now. And they found the TARDIS.
And you see a Dalek come up out of the
sand. Harkening back to the Dalek invasion of Earth, where they come out of the
water.
River.
Yeah.
So
the weird things that have done bad things to the Iridians.
What?
Those monster thingies.
Yeah.
The what are they called? Mire beasts.
Yeah.
The Mire beasts kill some Iridians. 3 Iridians die.
The Daleks kill the Iridians. They have the Iridians dig up the TARDIS.
Oh no, but then okay, yeah. That was before.
Yeah.
And then they just kill them.
Yeah. And so the Doctor and Barbara are held captive now by the Iridian. Well, not captive, but the Iridians now are going to be in trouble because the Daleks want the Doctor and Barbara, obviously. So the Daleks have told the Iridians that either they're going to give up Barbara and the Doctor, or the Daleks are just going to come kill all the Iridians and take them.
Yeah, so the Iridians are like, yeah, we're not going to sacrifice our people for you. So they try and take the Doctor and everyone hostage.
But Vicky shows up and is like, yo, look at me. And they're like, where's Ian? And she's like, hey, I know where he is. Come with me. So they escape while one of the Mire Beasts
attacks
breaks
and
through the wall.
Kills an Iridian.
Yeah. So now there's a Mire Beast in the non-sealed off part, well, the sealed off part of the city that was free from Mire Beasts, but it's not anymore. They get to Ian, and
they get back to the surface.
Right, and the TARDIS is right there by the exit, but some Daleks are guarding it. Well, one Dalek is guarding it.
And they make a really big deal about having to distract the Daleks, but then they do it really easily and they leave.
Using Barbara's cardigan again, might add. Running a theme.
Running joke.
And then they get in the TARDIS and leave, and the Daleks say, oh no, they have escaped. And that's the end of episode 2.
Yes. And episode 3 is where, well...
Episode 3 was the one where they do New York and the Mary Celeste and the Haunted House.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler
Apparently
alert.
the Haunted House is in Ghana.
What? Why?
I don't even know.
Okay.
So they land...
Well, episode 3 starts with the scene of some tourists on top of the Empire State Building.
Right.
And there's this tour guide giving this tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they just killed time in this episode by having that scene go on for a couple of minutes. And there's this guy from Alabama who's like really into the tour and stuff. And the tour group moves on. Yeah, the tour group moves on, and he decides to stay in a section of the roof and take some more pictures or whatever. And the TARDIS materializes, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, what's going on?"
And Barbara comes out and asks for the date, and he's like, "Do they have different times in the UK? What's going on?"
No, in New York.
In New York, and he's like, just what's the date, sir?" He's like, well, 1966.
And he thinks the Doctor and everyone are movie stars.
Yeah, and they're filming a movie. Some really good special effects.
and he takes out his camera and fumbles with his camera for a minute to get a picture of them, and then they leave. And he's like, whoa, what?
He turns around and it's gone. He's like, dang it. And he turns around again, and then the Dalek thing materializes. He's like, whoa. Who are you guys? You guys seem pretty cool. And then they threaten him.
They're like, where is the doctor?
He's like, oh, you mean those movie producers? They left. And he's like, hang on, let me get a picture of this. He turns around again, and then they dematerialize. And then the tour group comes back.
And he tries to explain it, and they're like, sure, man, sure.
And then the tour guide's like, just make sure he doesn't leave. I'm gonna go get a policeman.
There goes his sanity. So they ruin a guy's life, and then they move on in their chase through space and time.
Chase through space. Ooh. And then they land on a pirate ship.
And this scene really makes you think that Vicky is out to actually kill her companions.
Okay, so go ahead.
So, Vicky...
Well, Barbara goes out first again.
Barbara goes out first, and everyone else is like, we need to leave as soon as possible, as soon as we can, because we need to lose the Daleks who are chasing us. But Barbara's like, no, we're gonna stay here for a few minutes and look around. So she goes on ahead, and then Vicky, and then Ian goes to go get her, and then Vicky sees that some pirates or some sailors are like harassing Barbara, so she knocks them out. She sneaks up on them and knocks them out, and then Ian shows up and she knocks him out too.
Yeah, not realizing it's Ian, he knocks him out, and she's like, "Oh, Ian, I'm so sorry, Ian." What if Vicky's an assassin from the future sent to kill Ian and Barbara?
Well, she fails. Spoiler, if she is, she fails.
So then they leave, and the Dalek ship shows up.
Oh, God.
And then everyone's like, oh, no!
Yeah, the pirates or whoever they are just freak out.
And the Daleks are trying to find out where the doctor went, and all the sailors just jump off the ship. Including a woman and a baby. They just all jump off. Presumably they die.
We didn't count them on the death count because they didn't explicitly show their deaths or state that they died.
Well, we did count one, and that was the Dalek who went, oh no!
Yeah.
When the final guy jumped off the ship, he went, no, come back! And then he just drove off the ship into the water and died. Like, okay. Why not? And then the Dalek ship goes away, and you discover that the sailing ship they landed on was the Mary Celeste.
Which is a ghost ship.
Yeah, if you don't know the story of the Mary Celeste, it went sailing, and then they found it like a couple months later completely abandoned.
In the Bermuda Triangle.
With no explanation of where everyone went. And apparently it was the Daleks. And that's the end of episode 3.
And in episode 4, the TARDIS lands in sort of a haunted mansion looking type of place.
Yeah.
Old manor. And they decide to look around again. Not a good idea. I think this was the point where they decided they were going to ambush the Daleks because they couldn't keep running forever.
Yeah. Because originally they had 12 minutes between them and the Daleks. But
now they have less. Thanks, Barbara. 8. Thanks.
Well, part of it is apparently, we might have missed this line, the doctor said that the TARDIS takes some time before it can jump again.
Yeah, that's why they were waiting in each location.
Yeah. But, maybe if Barbara hadn't gone off, that would have helped.
Yep.
But anyway.
So Ian and the doctor decide to look around, but Barbara and Vicky are kind of scared, so they stay behind.
And then they also go looking around. Just not up the stairs.
And the doctor and Ian are like, where the heck could we be? What is this place? And the doctor has this strange conjecture that they're in like a dream realm or something. It was really weird and didn't make sense, but he's like, what if this place exists between people's dreams? And I was like, what?
Well, it's an episode of the reboot.
Oh, God.
With the Dream Lord.
Oh, God. Yay.
Very convoluted and confusing. And then at the end, it all makes sense. You're like, oh, wow.
Well, that's good. Well, same with this episode, except it's more disappointing. But we'll get there. So, the Doctor and Ian see Frankenstein, and they run away, and they're like, whoa, dream world, what is this? And
Vicky and Barbara find Dracula.
Yeah, and they're like,
whoa, what? Whoa. And then they get back to the TARDIS, they kind of reconvene, and then the Daleks show up. Well, the Daleks show up right before that, because the Doctor and Ian come back to the TARDIS, find out Barbara and Vicky aren't there, just think they probably follow them, went back up the stairs, and then they found Frankenstein, and then the Daleks show up, and then the Frankenstein battles one of the Daleks.
And at this point, the Daleks have all four of them at arm point, you could say. And this scene was kind of weird because they're like, exterminate, exterminate, and then they kind of just wait while the Doctor and everyone escape.
Probably because Frankenstein and Dracula showed up and started attacking the Daleks.
But no, that was it really. There was this one shot where they were like, the Daleks said exterminate, and then it was like the Doctor talking, and then they just kind of slowly run back to the TARDIS without Vicky.
Maybe they missed.
Right, they missed at point blank. Anyway, whatever.
They did before.
When?
Before.
Was it in the Dalek invasion of Earth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably. I seem to remember them missing.
All right.
Maybe it was in the Daleks when they ambushed the people and only ended up killing one of them.
Oh. But yeah, the Doctor, Ian, and Barbara escape, but Vicky gets captured. She doesn't get captured by the Daleks, but she doesn't escape. And then, in the panic, with Frankenstein and the other monsters attacking, she runs into the Daleks' time machine. And
this is when the Doctor finds out they were in Ghana in 1996.
They don't find out about that. You just see the camera pan over to that sign. It's like, haunted house.
Yeah, apparently it was in Ghana.
Yeah.
1996.
It's kind of weird. They would... Why?
I don't know. So, that's how that episode ends.
So they don't realize Vicky's gone for like a good while.
They're talking, and then Barbara brings in 4 glasses of water, and she's like, where's Vicky? And the Doctor's like, oh no! We left her behind. I don't know why he became Doc Brown there. Quick, Marty, we've left behind Vicky.
So they decide that in the next place they get to, since the TARDIS can't land in one place more than once, they decide they're going to wait for the Daleks and then steal the Daleks' time machine and go back and get Vicky, not knowing that she's in the Daleks' time machine. So in the Daleks' time machine, Vicky is like trying to contact the TARDIS so that she can notify them that she's there, but she sees the Daleks creating a robot clone of the Doctor that they're going to use to infiltrate the TARDIS and kill everyone. Which sounds like a terrible plan.
That's actually where that episode ends. Not at the part where they find out it's Ghana.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then the next episode's called The Death of Doctor Who. Imagine everyone seeing that and be like, darn, I guess the show was cancelled. They're just going to kill him off.
And then they do. Well, they kill off the
in a
robot
way,
clone.
yeah. In a way.
So, they land on this planet called Mechanus, which ironically is full of foliage and stuff. And they discover these weird fungus creatures. I guess they're called fungoids,
yeah.
Apparently. We can change that on the death count, because we just called them fungi. Spoiler, some of them die. And they see this... The fungoids don't seem hostile at this point. They do later, though. Just kind of weird.
Well, they do at this point, up until the point where the lights come on. Because they're kind of about to eat the Doctor, and the lights come on, and they kind of shiver away. And then there's the Doctor mentions that they now have a path of light to the cave, so they go.
Really slow moving though. Really not that intimidating.
The pace was quick, and then all of a sudden it hit episode 5 and just went.
Well, no, the fungoids are actually physically slow moving.
I was talking about the pace of the cereal.
Yeah, but that too, actually, maybe because the last 2 episodes all take place on the same planet. But the Doctor and Ian and Vicky go off, and the Daleks land there, and they determine that the fungoids are hostile, so they're like, we need to exterminate any living thing we see. And then one of the Daleks gets killed by one of the fungoids.
They kill the fungoid.
So they kill 2 fungoids, and they send the robot doctor off to infiltrate and kill. Which he does. They all die.
Yeah. The end.
And now it's about the robot doctor.
Yeah, you've been watching the reboot. It's actually a robot. No, but actually, no. So they hear Vicky, because they turn off the lights so that the Daleks don't know where they are. And they hear Vicky. So
Barbara hears Vicky, and she's like, that must be... And then she keeps getting interrupted, and she's like, that's...
Guys, it's Vicky!
And the Doctor and Ian are like, just wait, Barbara, we need to go check something.
So Ian and the Doctor go to find Vicky. And then the robot doctor shows up to Barbara and is like, oh no, Ian's died, and I don't know what happened to Vicky. Come with me, Barbara, I'll show you where Ian is.
So she's like, okay. And then the Doctor and Ian come back, and they're like, damn.
They're like...
And the Doctor really... plot device-y deduction is like, the only way she would have left is if Vicky or me came back.
And we've got Vicky, so...
So they must have cloned me! No,
Vicky just told them that they cloned him.
So they go find Barbara and the robot doctor.
And then there's the showdown you knew was coming, where they don't know who's the correct one.
Yep, they don't know who's who, you could say.
Well, they did, but then they kind of got split up, and they rejoined, and then they didn't know. And then they were about to kill the real Doctor, and Barbara's like, wait, no, the real Doctor would never say blah, 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 that this robot just did, so you're about to kill the wrong one, Ian!
And...
So Ian's like, shoot, sorry.
So they kill the robot doctor.
Who killed the robot doctor?
Who framed robot doctor? No. Let's check.
Who framed William Hartnell? Dude. Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, so that's when that... I was telling you about this, how the Doctor called Vicky Susan.
Yeah.
That's apparently how Barbara realized that was the robot, because the Daleks wouldn't have known that the Doctor wasn't traveling with Susan anymore. Susan.
Vicky and Susan are the same person. Proof. No.
The Doctor kills the Doctor.
Yep.
Apparently. Wow. Imagine killing yourself that's not actually yourself. It's like a clone of yourself. Really
well, now the Doctor's killed someone. Well, a robot, but still. We're counting him. So, yes.
So if you wanted to know which Doctor killed the most people, probably not the first, since he only just killed someone now.
So they the Daleks have actually caught up with them at this point, and the Doctor's like, I'm gonna pretend to be the robot Doctor, and
he didn't say that. He just went and did it.
No, he told them he was gonna do it, and they all agreed that it was a terrible idea, and he's like, nope, gonna do it anyway. And then he failed.
That's not what happened. Barbara was telling Ian that the Doctor should go pretend to be the robot Doctor. And while she was telling Ian, you saw the Doctor just wander off in the background. And he's like, Daleks, I've killed them. They're like, no, you haven't. The Doctor's like, oh no, that wasn't a good plan.
So that completely fails. And then they hear this voice, this unintelligible voice that apparently they can understand, but we couldn't, because it was really robotic. And it belonged to this weird spherical robot who told them to come with it to this city.
Which they saw that morning when they woke up.
Yeah.
Because they arrived in the nighttime apparently, so they couldn't see it.
So they decide to follow it because they're being shot at by the Daleks, so they're like, might as well. So they follow it to this city.
And then they get captured. They get thrown in jail, basically.
Yeah, they get taken prisoner. Better than getting shot, to be honest.
And then they meet Stephen Taylor.
Were we gonna do a thing where we said that at the same time or something?
Well, we tried and failed.
Okay, good enough for me.
It should be the motto of the podcast. We tried and failed. Be a really bad motto.
And Steven Taylor is insane.
Yeah, he might actually be. I mean, I don't know. You've read his whole page on the wiki, apparently, and spoiled it for yourself. And I haven't, so don't spoil that for me.
Yeah, he actually is insane.
A
lot of stupid stuff happens.
I'm really excited, actually.
But so Steven tells them that he's from Earth in the future, where they decided to. So basically, Earth decided to colonize Mechanus, and they sent these robots to go ahead and I guess build the city or like start the operations there. And due to war, they basically abandoned the project, and the robots just kept functioning, and they created this city and stuff. So so Steven has been a prisoner of theirs for what was it, 3 years?
Something like that.
Yeah, really long time, and now he's insane. And he has a little panda
named Hi-Fi. I hope he becomes a recurring character.
It's a little stuffed panda
named Hi-Fi.
Yeah.
Why? Terry Nation, why?
It becomes a key plot point later.
So turns out Steven Taylor has roof access in his cell.
Yeah, he built roof access into his cell. He made like a staircase thing. So they go onto the roof, and there's literally all the equipment you would need to escape on the roof that Steven just hasn't made use of.
No, he escaped before, but he almost got killed by the fungoids, and then he got recaptured by the mechanoids.
I didn't remember that.
You know, considering the fact he didn't have a way to escape since he crashed on the planet.
It's true. But they decide to escape, and Vicky... Meanwhile?
Well, the doctor left that bomb thing. And meanwhile, that thing's going off.
Oh, yeah.
This thing that he's been working on in the TARDIS while they're jumping to finish it to kill the Daleks this whole time. And he puts it down, and it kills a Dalek. It does kill a Dalek, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this big mechanoid Dalek fight.
Where
this is probably the best fight scene in the whole show so far.
You
in the classic series. You couldn't tell what was happening, but it was awesome. Robots fighting? Come on!
Yeah, the only death we could clearly make out was one of the mechanoids, so we went ahead and added that to the death count.
We'll just put an unspecified amount of Daleks and mechanoids on the death count like we've been doing this whole time.
Yep.
You realize in every Dalek serial we've seen so far, I mean, there's only been 3, but in all of them they end with a ton of Daleks dying.
Yeah, they somehow come back every time, either due to weird stuff or just random time travel. But the Doctor and friends are escaping, and Vicky's afraid of heights. So she's like, nope, not doing it, guys. Not doing it. Won't do it.
Nope.
And then Barbara tries to convince her to use the, they have a rope bungee system going on. So Barbara's like, you need to do it, Vicky, or else we're going to die. And Vicky just breaks down.
And the Doctor's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm blindfolding you, Vicky.
So there's this part of this scene where it looks like the Doctor's tying a noose around Vicky's neck.
Vicky's not the only time traveling assassin. You know what would be a great subplot is if the Doctor and Vicky are spies for opposing factions and they were trying to kill each other.
What?
Be a great subplot.
It would be an interesting subplot, to say the least.
I don't think it happens.
Yeah, I don't think that happens. Why doesn't Hi-Fi have his own article? Just notice that. It's not a link.
Maybe because he never shows up again.
Darn. I wanted him to become a recurring...
Yeah, he should show up again, considering Steven's like, guys, wait, I gotta go back and get the mascot. The Doctor's
right as they're about to jump.
The Doctor's like, no! And Vicky's already going down at this point, and then they all fall over and almost die because Steven let go of the rope.
Thanks, Steven.
And then they somehow get to the bottom safely, and Vicky's like, where's Steven? The Doctor's like, He didn't make it, Vicky. And they leave.
And they get back to the TARDIS.
And then the Doctor goes to examine the Dalek time machine thing. And this is where Barbara and Ian decide
that they want to return to 63 because they finally have a way to do it, because they finally have a time machine that works.
This makes the Doctor really mad.
Yeah. So the Doctor, who's obviously grown attached to them, gets really... Well, I mean, I guess he's really sad, but he just masks it with anger and doesn't want them to leave and stuff, which was pretty sad.
Yeah.
But they decide that they can't keep adventuring with the Doctor forever, which I personally would have done. But if I was in their position...
Vicky tells the Doctor that he needs to let them go. It's time to move on.
So he does. He teaches them how to use the Dalek's time machine.
And he tells them they each only have a 50% chance of making it. Wonder where he got those odds.
Maybe he was just making it up. Maybe it was his last ditch attempt to have them stay. But no, they decide to leave. And they get back to London.
In 65.
And Barbara's like, wait a minute, it's 1965. And Ian's like, yeah, whatevs.
They just brush it off. And then they blow up the Dalek time machine. What if Stephen Taylor stowed away in the Dalek time machine? Thinking it was the TARDIS, and it blew up and killed him. So then there's the montage that we talked about at the beginning of this episode.
They have a montage where they frolic through the, for some reason, empty streets of London.
In still pictures.
Yeah.
Why? They had all the opportunity to just use film, and they used still pictures.
They did it in a lot of different locations, so that's why I thought they used still pictures, because they were...
No, I thought the still pictures were a very, very slow stop motion animation, because there was like that whole part where there was the birds, and the next picture was like Ian leaning down to feed the birds, and then like the next picture was the birds attacking Ian.
Yeah, I guess some of them were in order like that. So, I don't know.
And then they get on a bus and ask for 5 threes or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't get that line. Maybe because we're not from the UK. Maybe that's...
If someone from the UK want to explain this line, the conductor asks for fares and Ian says 2 threes, please. And the conductor says 2 threes? You must be joking. Where have you been? On the moon? And Ian's like, no, but you're getting warm.
So
if there's a UK listener who wants to explain that, email us. We'll put the email at the end of the episode like we usually do. We forgot to mention that they've decided they're going to explain their absence from their school by saying they went to Madagascar.
Great plan, guys.
And then it zooms
Definitely
out.
not going to get fired.
Well, they don't, actually.
They don't.
In the 50th anniversary, the Doctor's companion Clara Oswald has a job at Coal Hill's school where they worked, and there's a sign that says, like, Headmaster Ian Chesterton.
Oh, wow.
But, so it zooms out, and the Doctor's looking at them on the time-space visualizer, and they're like, all right, let's go. And the Doctor's like, well, that's that. And I guess he's happy that they survived.
Yeah.
And then they leave.
Yeah, and then...
We also skipped that scene where Stephen Taylor had escaped.
Yeah, he survives.
He was like, oh, yes, now where are they? Doctor!
And you just see him running through the jungle.
See, I thought Stephen Taylor was going to be a regular companion, which is why I was confused he didn't join them at the end of the episode. And you're not going to spoil it for me.
I'm not going to spoil it for you, but... Yeah, he returns.
Okay.
That's all you need to know. This isn't his last appearance.
Of course not.
And yeah, that's the end of Ian and Barbara. And I mean, you knew that this was going to be their
I went
last
in
serial.
knowing.
Yeah. Just like I'll go in knowing what Stephen Taylor's last serial is going to be.
Well, I know how Vicky leaves, but not in what serial, so...
Mm-hmm. We need to stop spoiling these things.
Yeah, we really do.
But yeah, Ian and Barbara, I'm going to be sad that they're not in the show anymore. because they were
really good.
Yeah, Ian was definitely.
I'm not gonna lie, even including reboot companions, Ian Chesterton's probably my favorite companion.
Wow, yeah, Ian was a really good character, possibly my favorite character so far. Actually, yeah, you know what? My favorite character so far, more so than the Doctor.
Well, based on episode count, I think Ian and Barbara are second and third. They're in the same amount of episodes, so tied for second, I guess. With longest running companion being only surpassed by Sarah Jane Smith, who appeared with the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 10th and 11th Doctors.
Yeah,
she was a really long running companion.
Yeah, Ian and Barbara were in 80 episodes, so a 10th of the series.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Side note, that means we're a 10th of the way through.
Yay. Yeah, I'm actually gonna be pretty sad that they're gone. It's not gonna be the same without them anymore.
Definitely not gonna be the same.
Even though we bagged on Barbara like there was no tomorrow, I'm still gonna be sad to see her gone.
That was the appeal of Barbara. She was there's always
the punching bag.
It's like when you watch a horror movie and there's always the first guy to die who dies in some really convoluted, dumb way, and you bag on them for that. That was Barbara. We were bagging on Barbara because she was designed to be the character to be bagged on.
Yeah, I guess.
But that's why she's so great. I think they just stopped.
Was that her appeal?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Well, it's would she have been as good of a character if she wasn't useless at the beginning and then became more useful?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, Barbara and Ian, at least they got written out well. At least they got a happy ending.
That's true. You know, when we went into this, when we got into the last part of this serial, which was them leaving, I was like, wow, it's pretty abrupt that they would just write them out right at the end of this serial. Because if you remember back in the Dalek Invasion of Earth, Susan's write-out was kind of abrupt, but there was some lead-up to it at least. With this, it was kind of just... They had discussed wanting to go back to Earth before, but at this, it was kind of just like, hey, we can go back now. We should probably do that. So I thought I was going to not like how they were written out, but I actually kind of did. With the Doctor, seeing them over the visualizer at the end. And
well, I enjoyed it more than Susan's write-out, because I knew both when Susan and Ian and Barbara were going to leave, and I went into both serials knowing it was going to be the last one, and I preferred it where they just didn't talk about them leaving until the end, where it just became something they had to do, rather than Dalek Invasion of Earth, where they basically, the whole serial was a setup to write Susan out at the end. I'm going to say Barbara.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed this write-out more too, to be honest. Probably just because I liked Ian and Barbara more than Susan. And I'll be honest, I didn't really care when Susan was written out. I mean, I thought I would, but I didn't really.
Well, and maybe part of the reason for that was because they replaced her the next week with Vicky.
Yep, they're the same person! No.
And they're not going to replace Ian and Barbara. I mean, I don't think the first Doctor travels with 3 companions again.
He's gonna go kidnap 2 more teachers and travel with them. He won't accept it not being the same. No. He'll travel with someone else. Someone else.
Stephen Taylor. But I guess it's kind of sad to realize that when this Doctor dies, Ian and Barbara and Susan, the 3 people who probably he cared most about aren't going to be there.
Yeah, that's probably true. And since we watched An Adventure in Space and Time, we know that William Chesterton. Yes, no.
Well, Ian Chesterton is played by William Russell.
Yes, I meant to say William Russell. We know that William Russell and Jacqueline Hill getting written out really affected Hartnell, because now because none of the 3 original companions are on the show anymore.
Right, and I think very soon Verity Lambert's going to be moving on, and I think at the end of episode 2 is where she's going to move on.
Episode 2 of the next serial?
I meant end of season 2, but...
Yeah, so we know how much that affects William Hartnell, which is also makes it even more sad.
Let's do a retrospective on Ian and Barbara, like we did for Susan. Let's
Okay.
look back at our favorite Barbara and Ian moments and our least favorite Barbara and Ian moments.
Well, my favorite Barbara moments were definitely when she killed the Morphos and ran over the Daleks.
You mean the ones where she became a blood-soaked killer?
Yes, those ones. And favorite Ian moments? I don't know, because Ian had a lot of good moments.
My favorite Ian moments were the ones where he was working with the Doctor and they became a super awesome duo. Like whenever Vicky and in the Web Planet, where Barbara and Vicky went off at the beginning there, and then Ian and Barbara were Ian and the Doctor were working together.
Yes. Or in Marco Polo, where they come up with amazing plans to do things that kind of ended up failing, but still.
Least favorite Barbara moment. All those times she was completely useless.
Like the first half of season 1. Actually, no. In season 2, when she touched the poisoned wheat and decided not to tell anyone,
it's a good point.
That was the one time where I was like, wow, Barbara. Wow. Well, not the one time, but the most prevalent time where I was like, Barbara, why? And least favorite Ian moment?
I didn't really have one.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one, and I probably mentioned this on a podcast way back, where he was arguing with the Doctor for some really convoluted reason. I was just like, why?
Yeah, I don't know. But do we have one specific favorite Ian moment?
No, he was too good of a character.
He was too good.
I mean, we mentioned this at the beginning, that Ian acted kind of like a foil to the Doctor, whereas, the Doctor was like the wise old man, and Ian was kind of like
the hip young.
Yeah.
No.
Not as young, but like more street smart than the Doctor.
Yeah. The more willing to
take risks kind of thing.
And
which was good for the Doctor, I guess. It helped Ian and Barbara helped develop the Doctor's character, obviously, to make him less of the grumpy old man and more of that old man with a twinkle that in Adventure in Space and Time.
Yeah. That Lambert was aiming for. But in regards to Ian and the Doctor, you see their evolution from character foils of each other, kind of, to working together over the course of Ian's stay.
And that was one of my favorite parts about Ian, and why he's probably my favorite companion, was just seeing how reluctant the Doctor and Ian were to work together at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
And I know when we started this podcast, I really didn't like that, but looking back now, that was really cool how they were reluctant to work together, and they were kind of just forced into a bad situation together, and then how they grew to become, almost family at the end. And Barbara, too, she was kind of forced into it at the beginning, and then working with the Doctor and Ian, she became more useful, and they kind of all became one big happy family. Traveling through space and time in a broken down police box. It's a time machine.
Aww. Yeah, that's... Yeah, I couldn't add anything more to that.
And I guess that's the end of Ian and Barbara.
Unfortunately.
I mean, we'll probably talk about them again when we get to the end of the first Doctor. We'll probably summarize the first Doctor.
Or we can just forget about them. No.
Or we could do that, but I don't think we will anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, since I started with the first Doctor, Ian and Barbara getting written out, like, from now on, there's not going to be any more original companions for me, so...
Yep.
Yeah. I'll probably remember Ian and Barbara, and Susan to an extent, but, yeah.
So, special effects, this is the first time we actually saw the TARDIS... I'm Sean Connery. Saw the TARDIS flying through space.
Yeah, it was,
like the translucent TARDIS on a background of stars. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't think much of it, to be honest, when we saw it.
Well, the only reason I noted it was because the first time we saw the TARDIS actually flying through space.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed it, but I was just like, okay.
Also, this is the first time that Central Column was called the Time Rotor, which is a name that has stuck till today.
Huh.
I mean, we always just assumed it was called the Time Rotor.
No, I didn't even know what it was called.
Oh, it's called the Time Rotor. Because Vicky was at the control panel. She said, "Oh look, the Time Rotor's slowing down. We're landing."
Wait, the time-space visualizer actually makes other appearances?
Just one in an audio drama.
Oh.
With the Sixth Doctor. And probably in some of the prose. Ian and Barbara show up in a comic. I already told you they meet the 11th Doctor. And they don't believe the 11th Doctor's the Doctor. And he has to convince them that he is. Similar to how the 8th Doctor meets Susan again. Actually, I think Susan comes back in the TV show. She comes back in the special The Five Doctors, I think.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
Yeah. But Ian and Barbara don't, which is sad.
Oh.
So, yeah.
It's about it for this serial.
Ian and Barbara left. Also, in a Dalek serial. Susan and Ian and Barbara left in a Dalek serial.
Is it just a coincidence? Who knows?
I guess we'll find out when we get to Vicky.
Yes, we'll have to note these things.
So, email us. We didn't get any emails this week.
Well, we kind of said that together. Redeeming ourselves for our failure. Yeah.
So email us, thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. If you're a Britishman, you know what that phrase that we were talking about earlier. Or if you're just in the Europe area and you know what that means.
Or if you just Google it.
Or if you live somewhere that's not Europe and you know what that means, you should email us because, email us.
Yes.
And rate us on iTunes. Check out the website. And next week we're watching The Time Meddler.
It's an introduction of another Time Lord.
I think he's called the Monk.
The Monk. He's Monk from Monk.
But yes, Time Meddler next week.
But until then, the end.